Picture this. You're all packed for a quick weekend getaway, but suddenly your car breaks down, your luggage explodes, and you end up crashing on your friend's couch for 2 months. Now, imagine that happening in space. That's basically what's going on with NASA's latest misadventure. Our protagonists in this celestial soap opera are astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. They thought they were in for a breezy 8-day trip to the International Space Station. Instead, they've been up there for nearly 2 months, probably wondering if they remembered to turn off the stove back on Earth. But wait, there's more. Boeing, the aerospace giant that brought us the 737 MAX fiasco, is now treating us to a sequel in space. Their Starliner spacecraft, which was supposed to be NASA's golden ticket to reduce dependency on Russian rockets, has decided to throw a tantrum worthy of a toddler in a candy store. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Captain Obvious, surely NASA has a backup plan. Well, my dear viewers, they do, and it's called SpaceX. Yes, Elon Musk's cosmic taxi service might just swoop in to save the day. It's like calling an Uber because your friend's car broke down on the way to pick you up, except this Uber costs billions of dollars and goes to space. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about a couple of astronauts overstaying their welcome on the ISS. Oh no. This is about the future of commercial spaceflight, the reputation of one of America's biggest companies, and billions of taxpayer dollars floating around in zero gravity. Let's break down the technical difficulties, shall we? Starliner's thrusters are acting like me trying to get out of bed on a Monday morning. They just don't want to work. 5 out of 28 thrusters decided to take an unscheduled vacation during the approach to the ISS. And don't even get me started on the helium leaks. It's like someone forgot to burp the baby, except the baby is a multi-billion-dollar spacecraft, and the burp is highly pressurized gas. Who knew rocket science could be so domestic? But wait, there's more. The propellant valve is moving slower than a sloth on vacation, and the thrusters are overheating faster than my laptop when I try to run too many apps at once. It's like the entire spacecraft is going through a midlife crisis, and we're all along for the ride. Now, I'm no rocket scientist. Shocking, I know. But even I can see that this is more than just a case of the Mondays. Boeing's engineers are scratching their heads, trying to figure out why their high-tech space jalopy is acting like it's held together with duct tape and dreams. They think it might have something to do with heat buildup causing Teflon seals to bulge. Yes, you heard that right. The same material that keeps your eggs from sticking to the pan is causing headaches in space. Who knew your kitchen and a spacecraft had so much in common? But here's the real kicker. Most of these problems are centered on Starliner's service module. That's the part that's crucial for undocking from the ISS and getting our intrepid astronauts back to Earth. Oh, and did I mention that this module burns up during re-entry? So if something goes wrong, we can't even rummage through the wreckage for clues. It's like trying to solve a murder mystery, where the body vanishes into thin air. Now, you might be thinking, surely they tested for all this before launch, right? Well, my dear viewers, they did. But it turns out that simulating space conditions on Earth is about as easy as trying to recreate the Sahara Desert in your bathtub. Some of these issues just didn't show up during ground testing, proving once again that space has a wicked sense of humor. And let's not forget about redundancy. In space, you always want a plan B, C, and possibly D through Z. But with multiple thruster failures, Starliner is cutting it close when it comes to maintaining what they call 6 degrees of freedom of control. That's a fancy way of saying not tumbling through space like a cosmic tumbleweed. So, what's NASA to do? Well, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, or more accurately, between a malfunctioning spacecraft and the unforgiving vacuum of space. They're running tests, rewriting software, and probably crossing their fingers behind their backs. It's like trying to fix your car while it's still moving, but instead of a car, it's a spacecraft, and instead of a highway, it's the unforgiving void of space. Talk about a cosmic fender bender. But let's take a moment to appreciate the elephant in the room, or should I say the dragon in orbit. While Boeing's Starliner is playing hard to get with success, SpaceX's Crew Dragon has been zipping astronauts to and from the ISS like a cosmic Uber on steroids. Picture this. SpaceX, the new kid on the block, has already completed 5 crewed missions to the ISS. That's right, 5. And if that wasn't enough to make Boeing executives sweat through their suits, They've also nailed 30 cargo missions. It's like watching a space race where one runner is crossing the finish line multiple times, while the other is still tying their shoelaces at the starting block. Now, I'm not saying competition in space is a bad thing. In fact, it's probably the best thing since freeze-dried ice cream. But when one company is lapping the other faster than you can say, "Houston, we have a problem," you've got to wonder if NASA's dream of having two reliable space taxis might be turning into a monorail situation. Let's be real for a second. If SpaceX were a restaurant, they'd be that hip new place with lines around the block and rave reviews on Yelp. Boeing, on the other hand, would be that once popular diner struggling to remember how to flip a burger without setting the kitchen on fire. But here's where it gets really interesting, folks. NASA, in all its infinite wisdom, is stuck in the middle of this cosmic custody battle. They're like parents trying to give equal attention to both children, even when one keeps bringing home straight A's while the other is eating glue in the corner. The question on everyone's mind is, how long can NASA keep this balancing act going? Will they continue to pour money into Boeing's space piggy bank, hoping for a miracle? Or will they eventually have to admit that in this space race, there's a clear winner and well, let's just say participant? Don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for Boeing. Who doesn't love an underdog story? But at this point, it's less Rocky and more Titanic, minus the romance and plus a lot more expensive equipment floating aimlessly in space. But fear not, space fans. NASA, ever the responsible parent, has a whole playbook of what-ifs tucked under its rocket-powered belt. Let's dive into their contingency plans, shall we? First up, we have the fingers-crossed approach. NASA and Boeing are still insisting that Starliner is the primary choice for bringing our cosmic castaways home. It's like saying your beat-up jalopy is still your go-to ride, even though it's been in the shop for 2 months and the mechanic is scratching his head. But wait, there's a plot twist! Enter SpaceX, stage left. NASA's been eyeing Elon Musk's cosmic chariot, the Crew Dragon, as a potential backup. It's like having your ex on speed dial just in case your current date stands you up. Awkward? Maybe. Practical? Absolutely. Now, you might be wondering, Captain Obvious, how long can these astronauts hang out in space? Well, funny you should ask. Starliner was designed to chill at the ISS for up to 45 days without breaking a sweat. Our intrepid space explorers have been up there for about 50 days now. It's like overstaying your welcome at a friend's house, but instead of a couch, you're crashing on a $150 billion space station. Meanwhile, NASA's engineers are working harder than a cat trying to bury its business on a marble floor. They're running tests, crossing their fingers, and probably sacrificing a few calculators to the space gods. They're even planning to do some hot fire testing of Starliner's thrusters while it's still attached to the ISS. It's like revving your car's engine while it's still in the garage. What could possibly go wrong? But here's where NASA really shines. They're keeping their options as open as the vacuum of space. They're not committing to a return date, instead letting the data drive their decisions. It's like when your mom says, "We'll see," but instead of deciding whether you can have ice cream for dinner, it's about whether a multi-billion-dollar spacecraft can safely hurtle through the atmosphere without turning into a very expensive shooting star. And let's not forget about the ISS itself. With Wilmore and Williams extending their cosmic vacation, the space station is now hosting a party of 9. It's like when your roommate's significant other moves in without warning, but instead of arguing over who ate the last slice of pizza, you're divvying up limited oxygen and freeze-dried ice cream. But wait, there's more! Remember that space debris incident back in June? You know, just another day in the life of an astronaut dodging cosmic shrapnel like it's a game of celestial dodgeball. Well, that little incident proved that in a pinch, Starliner could serve as an emergency escape pod. It's like finding out your broken-down car can still roll downhill if you really need it to. So, what's the takeaway from all this? NASA's got more backup plans than a doomsday prepper with a Costco membership. They're juggling spacecraft like a cosmic circus act, all while keeping a straight face and assuring us that everything's under control. But here's the kicker, and the argument I'm making, in case you missed it between the jokes. This whole Starliner saga is proof that in space, you can never have too many options. NASA's insistence on having 2 commercial crew providers isn't just bureaucratic box ticking, it's a cosmic insurance policy. Think about it. If NASA had put all its eggs in the Starliner basket, we'd be looking at a very different situation right now. Instead of a minor inconvenience and some embarrassing headlines, we could be facing a real crisis in our ability to access the ISS. So, while it's easy to poke fun at Boeing's cosmic fender bender, let's take a moment to appreciate NASA's foresight. They're not just playing with rockets, they're playing chess in 4 dimensions. And in this game, having a backup queen, even if it comes from your competitor, might just save the whole match. Now, let's talk money, honey, because in space, no one can hear you scream about budget overruns. Boeing has already burned through an extra $1.5 billion on top of their initial $4.5 billion NASA contract. That's right, folks. They've spent more on fixes than some countries spend on their entire space programs. It's like going to the store for milk and coming back with a yacht that doesn't quite float yet. But wait, there's more! This cosmic cash bonfire isn't just burning a hole in Boeing's pocket. Oh no, it's singeing NASA's wallet too. With every delay, every test, every head-scratching moment, the meter keeps running. It's like the world's most expensive taxi ride, but instead of circling the block, we're orbiting the Earth. And let's not forget the political circus this has stirred up. Picture a bunch of senators and representatives trying to understand rocket science. It's like watching a group of cats try to solve a Rubik's Cube. Entertaining, but not very productive. They're asking the tough questions like, why are we spending billions on a space Uber that keeps getting lost? And couldn't we just strap a bunch of fireworks to a Tesla and call it a day? But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember our friend SpaceX? The one that's been ferrying astronauts back and forth like a cosmic short-order cook? Well, every time Starliner hiccups, SpaceX looks more and more like NASA's favorite child. It's like when your parents say they don't have a favorite, but one kid gets a car for their birthday while the other gets a pair of socks. This whole situation is putting NASA in a pickle. They're trying to maintain 2 independent commercial providers for crew transportation, but it's starting to look more like one provider and one very expensive science project. It's like trying to run a race with a thoroughbred and a 3-legged donkey. Sure, they're both technically in the race, but one's clearly pulling ahead. And let's not forget about public perception. The average Joe on the street is starting to wonder if NASA's got all its rockets in a row. Every time Starliner makes headlines for the wrong reasons, it's another hit to public confidence. It's like watching your favorite sports team lose over and over again. Eventually, even the die-hard fans start to lose faith. But here's the kicker. And the reason why this whole mess matters more than just a few $1 billion and some bruised egos. This Starliner saga is a microcosm of a much bigger question. How do we balance government oversight, commercial interests, and public trust in the high-stakes world of space exploration? On one hand, we want to encourage innovation and competition in the private sector. We want the SpaceX's and Blue Origins of the world to push the boundaries of what's possible. But on the other hand, we need to ensure that when we're strapping human beings to the top of a controlled explosion and hurling them into the void of space, we're doing it with the utmost care and competence. It's a delicate balance, like trying to juggle flaming chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope over a shark tank in a hurricane. And right now, Boeing's performance is making that balancing act look about as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. So what's the solution? Well, if I had all the answers, I'd be sitting in a cushy office at NASA instead of talking to a camera in my mom's basement. But here's a thought. Maybe, just maybe, this whole Starliner debacle is actually a good thing in the long run. Hear me out. By exposing the flaws in the system, the technical challenges, the financial pitfalls, the political pressures, we're forced to confront some hard truths about our approach to space exploration. We're learning, in real time and at great expense, what works and what doesn't. And in the high-stakes game of space exploration, those lessons could be the difference between triumph and tragedy. It's like learning to ride a bike. Sure, you might scrape your knees a few times, but eventually you'll be popping wheelies on Mars. So, here's my argument, folks. NASA needs to double down on its strategy of diversifying its commercial partnerships. Yes, even if it means dealing with the occasional cosmic facepalm from Boeing. Why, you ask? Well, let's break it down with a little thought experiment. Imagine if NASA had put all its eggs in the Starliner basket. we'd be looking at a situation more dire than a vegan at a barbecue competition. No rides to the ISS, no backup plan, just a bunch of very expensive paperweights and some very frustrated astronauts playing the world's longest game of the floor is lava in space. But thanks to NASA's foresight in cultivating multiple commercial partners, we're not totally up the creek without a paddle. Or should I say, up in orbit without a rocket. We've got options, people. It's like having both Uber and Lyft on your phone. Sure, one might be having a surge pricing moment, but you're not stranded. Now I know what you're thinking. But Captain Obvious, isn't competition bad for cooperation? Won't these companies be at each other's throats? Well, my space cadets, that's where the magic happens. Competition breeds innovation faster than rabbits breed. Well, rabbits. Think about it. If SpaceX is the only game in town, what's pushing them to do better? To innovate? To not charge $1 million for a bag of peanuts on their space flights? But throw Boeing into the mix and suddenly everyone's on their toes. It's like having two kids. You tell them whoever cleans their room first gets ice cream, and watch how fast that house gets spotless. But it's not just about competition. It's about redundancy, reliability, and resilience. In space, Murphy's Law isn't just a cute saying, it's a way of life. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and probably at the worst possible moment. Having multiple systems, multiple approaches, multiple companies all working towards the same goal, that's not just smart, it's survival. And let's face it, folks, space is hard. It's not like baking a cake where if you mess up, you just scrape off the burnt bits and slather on some extra frosting. In space, mistakes cost lives and billions of dollars. By spreading the risk across multiple partners, NASA is essentially cosmic coupon clipping. They're getting more bang for their buck, more safety for their astronauts, and more options when things inevitably go sideways. But here's the real kicker. This approach isn't just about today's missions. It's about tomorrow's dreams. By fostering a diverse ecosystem of space companies, NASA is planting the seeds for future innovations we can't even imagine yet. It's like the space equivalent of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, except instead of pasta, it's cutting-edge technology, and instead of a wall, it's the vast expanse of the cosmos. So yes, the Starliner saga might seem like a cosmic comedy of errors, but in reality, it's a crucial part of a much bigger, much more important story. It's the story of humanity's reach for the stars, told through the lens of trial, error, and occasional hilarity. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll look back on this moment as the turning point. The moment when we realize that the key to conquering the final frontier isn't about having one perfect solution, but about having many imperfect ones all working together. It's about embracing the chaos, the competition, and yes, even the occasional exploding thruster. Because at the end of the day, space exploration isn't just about reaching new worlds. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, about daring to dream bigger than we ever have before. And sometimes, that means strapping ourselves to a rocket, crossing our fingers, and hoping that the laws of physics are in a good mood today. So, as we wrap up this cosmic comedy of errors, let's take a moment to appreciate the bigger picture. The Starliner saga isn't just about a spacecraft with stage fright, it's about humanity's relentless pursuit of the stars, our ability to laugh in the face of adversity, and our stubborn refusal to give up even when the odds are stacked against us. Think about it. We're living in a time when private companies are duking it out to see who can build the best space taxi. It's like Uber and Lyft, but instead of arguing over surge pricing, they're debating the merits of different types of rocket fuel. And NASA? They're the cosmic referee, making sure everyone plays by the rules and nobody accidentally creates a black hole in their backyard. Sure, Boeing might be the kid who showed up to the science fair with a baking soda volcano while SpaceX brought a working fusion reactor. But you know what? That baking soda volcano might just teach us something we never knew we needed to learn. Maybe it'll inspire some bright-eyed engineer to think, hey, if they can mess up this badly and still be in the game, maybe I can give it a shot too. And that, my friends, is the real magic of this whole situation. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about learning from our mistakes, picking ourselves up when we fall, and maybe cracking a few jokes along the way. Because if we can't laugh at ourselves while we're trying to conquer the final frontier, then what's the point? So here's to NASA, to Boeing, to SpaceX, and to every starry-eyed dreamer out there who's ever looked up at the night sky and thought, I wonder what it's like up there. Keep reaching for the stars, keep pushing the boundaries, and most importantly, keep your sense of humor. Because in space, no one can hear you laugh. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. This is Captain Obvious, signing off. Remember, in the grand cosmic scheme of things, we're all just tiny specks floating on a bigger speck. So let's make our time here count, whether we're on Earth or orbiting above it. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be telling these stories to our grandkids on Mars, laughing about the time when getting to space was harder than finding a parking spot in downtown Houston. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your head in the stars, and your emergency space diapers handy. You never know when you might need them. Over and out.